Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Gorowski, and I'll be your host for today. We've got lots to catch up on. This is, I believe, our second last of our 30-minute summer sessions. By September 12th, we are going to ramp right back up to a full hour session of the world's most exciting classroom. We're going to bring back in our Kahoot quizzes, bring back in some more guest speakers, and of course, bring back in our experiments that we'll challenge classrooms with, and give them 2 weeks to try them on their own and answer some questions for a shot at some prizes. So the plan for today, we are going to catch up with the ship. But before we do that, we are going to watch a little video that highlights the last leg of the expedition. So leg 20 from Papeete, so Tahiti, and then to Rarotonga, where it was a short visit to Rarotonga. It was only a few days. The crew was able to get on board, and during that few days we changed the passengers. So the passengers got off and a new group for leg 21 to Tonga came on board. So before we dive into some of that, I would like to share my screen, and we're going to take a look at the map and find out where we are. So there we go. Let's get that nice and full screen. So here we are, the big blue marble. We are in the Pacific. You can see that we've made quite a bit of progress crossing the Pacific here. Let's rotate the map a little bit. It is a massive ocean. We can lose the land if we get on this angle. And then what's really exciting is we can see New Zealand and Australia starting to appear over the horizon. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We will be there in kind of October, November-ish. So that's going to be pretty cool. We are going to have the ship join us. The Wi-Fi has been a little bit spotty today on the Oosterschelde, but I just heard from Grant on board. He was just able to connect. So with any luck, we will have a little connection from the ship. We'll catch up on some of the endemic bird species that Grant was able to spot. And then Josh was able to get out and do some diving. So hopefully we will get to see some of that. If we zoom in a little bit closer, let's get a little look at progress. So under this video here is Rarotonga. So you can see we have set sail again. We have made some progress as we make our way towards Tonga. We have a couple little video clips here. Let's play this first one. You might remember Grant and Josh talked about humpback whales, that they were coming all around the ship. Here's a nice little clip of some of those humpback whales. There goes the tail, disappearing down for a little bit. As you can hear, the crew, the passengers are pretty excited as well. And then if I go down a little bit, we have another image update here. There it is. And it looks like some action going on, maybe some repairs to one of the sails there. So we've got a crew member up on one of the sails there. Very cool. Okay, let's come back from that screen share. It sounds like we are going to have a connection from the Oosterschelde in about 10 minutes or so. So as we lead up to that, I want to play this video from leg 20 and take you on board the ship so you can experience what it was like sailing these South Pacific waters as we made our way from Papeete, so Tahiti, to Rarotonga. So let's cue that video up and let's take a look at it together.
Or do we want to? you. Because this guy here stays and he stays
All right, there we go. A taste of sailing from Papeete to Rarotonga. Let's talk to somebody who experienced that. Let's bring Grant in live on the deck with us. Let's grab him. Hey, Grant, how are you?
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Grant, that looked, the sailing, the scenery looked kind of rubbish. Are you bored?
You're joking, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It looked pretty incredible.
Pretty incredible. Yeah, I was so happy to see the whale footage from where we were in Rarotonga. It was pretty amazing that they were just surfacing right next to the ship just about any hour of the day.
Yeah, when you were watching the whales, did you see any young ones with them, or is it mostly adults?
Yeah, there were a couple of young calves, and you could kind of tell like especially when they would dive, you could see the difference in the tail size.
Yeah. All right. Well, when we left you last, Grant, you guys were waiting to go around to the other side of the island because the weather was a little bit rough. And you were waiting to get out in the field and find some endemic birds. You only had a couple of days. How'd it go?
I only had a couple of days. Actually, because of the weather conditions, we had a rough storm that was kind of coming into Rarotonga, and we actually had to shift out of the harbor in order to go to a more sheltered part of the island. It turned out there was really no sheltered part of the island, so I was only able to go to shore for 2 of the days that we were in Rarotonga, but I made the most of them. So the first day, my phone clocked in my mileage. I hiked 18 miles. And then the second day, I think I did like 15 and a half or something. And so it took a lot of time, but I did get into the forest. I was there for as long as I could possibly be.
All right. I've got some pictures you sent me. So let me get those up on the screen. So you mentioned the distance that you logged. These first few pictures of some scenery. So it wasn't easy hiking, was it?
It wasn't easy hiking, but it was so beautiful. I mean, one of the things that just really stuck with me was how much more intact the forests on Rarotonga are than any of the other islands that we've been to so far in the Pacific. Like most of these trees that you see in the scenery, I mean, they're green and it just kind of looks like trees, but like to me, I see that it's lacking a lot of the invasive species that dominate the landscape of a lot of these other islands. So these are mostly native trees. There are a ton of big tree ferns. You can see some of the ferns in the foreground there, big old hardwood trees that are like pretty massive. And because of that, I mean, there was a lot more bird life that you could hear and see around than in some of the other islands that we've been to.
All right. So I have a little video clip that you shared as well. Let me pull that up just to show the scenery. Let's see. There it is. So is that the rock pinnacle that we could see, or is that a different one?
That's the super famous. They call it the Needle. It's just like this old. I think it's an old magma core from the volcano. I think it's a denser rock that's harder to erode.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of what's left. After a lot of the other volcanic bits of the island have eroded away, and it's almost like this chimney stack in the middle of the island. And so a lot of people hike up to this point. People actually go all the way up to like the base of the Needle. Oh my gosh, I didn't see almost any birds yesterday, and there's a booby flying right up to the ship right now. Of course, now when I don't have my camera.
Yeah. Can you tell what species it is?
It's a brown booby, and I think did you see it?
Yeah, I just saw it fly by. Very cool.
Yeah. Maybe somebody else will grab a photo for me.
I saw it on video.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's just taunting you.
If somebody wants to grab a photo, I appreciate it. Yeah, we have been kind of birdless the past couple of days. I think the rough weather and then also just the time of year it is in this part of the Pacific. We just haven't had as much density with the seabirds since we've left port. But there's a young brown booby. So, but yeah, back to Rarotonga.
Let's take a look at some of the species you spotted in Rarotonga, and then we'll let you get back to the hunt and see if you can get some pictures. Hopefully the booby sticks around.
Yeah. So we'll start here. So this bird is it's actually an introduced bird to Rarotonga. It's not native. It's kind of myna. So the myna in the foreground is a different species from the common myna that's in the background there. So the one that's in the background is like a well-known species that's introduced all over the Pacific. The one in the foreground is a different species called a jungle myna. And I was sitting and eating my lunch, and I just noticed that there was this different species of myna there that wasn't on the official list of birds that you were expecting to see in Rarotonga. And so I snapped a few photos. I was really excited to see them. I did a little bit more research. So it's known there have been a few other sightings, like maybe 3 or 4 over the years of this species in Rarotonga, but they're not presently considered to be established. So that means that they're not like self-sufficiently reproducing in the wild. But after I started noticing them this once, I started paying more attention to all of the mynas around, and I started seeing them all over the island. So I think this is kind of an outdated bit of information that probably signals that this species has been breeding on the island for a little while, and it's self-sufficient. It's not relying on new introductions to still be on the wild. But so I was excited about that, even though it's a non-native bird. This has got to be the coolest bird that I saw in Rarotonga. So this is the Cook Islands or lilac-crowned fruit dove. They're just some of the most beautiful birds. They're some of the main fruit eaters on these islands, along with the imperial pigeons. But these guys are just so pretty. Each island group has their own different groups of fruit doves, and often you find unique species that are only restricted to a couple of islands. So this one here, it's only found on the island of Rarotonga, and it's I think it's one of the other neighboring islands in the Cook Islands, and there's only about 1,000 of them in the whole world. So I was really, really excited to get to see one of them. This was the only individual bird that I got photos of. They tended to be in very dense forests, and you would hear them a lot more often than you would see them. This one actually, it posed like it was. I watched it eat a flower bud, so you can see the flower bud in the middle of its mouth there. And it's interesting, the petals of the flower that it was eating, it's like almost the same lilac color that they have on the top of their head. So maybe that's a color that they're kind of really interested in, and that's why they're checking out that particular species of flower. Just pensively looking at the flower there. And then this bird was even harder to see. So I had 2 full days of hiking. Only got photos of one individual fruit dove, and then this was the only individual of the Rarotonga monarch that I was able to photograph. It was on our the last day hiking. I heard the birds calling near a river, and this is a bird that, mind you, they're only found on the island of Rarotonga. There's less than 1,000 individuals of these birds in the world, and they're only restricted to a small valley on the south side of the island. So it's a really, really small range-restricted species, and there are very few trails that walk through this part of the island. So I was on this trail just kind of waiting out for them, hoping that I would see them. I heard some of these birds calling about an hour and a half. I left the trail and was just kind of like stumbling around this mountainside, trying to follow this up and down this river and chasing these 2 individual birds as they're flying up and down the river and chasing insects around the river there. And it was an hour and a half, hadn't gotten a visual of these birds, but I had just been following my ears. And then finally, I'm not moving, and I look up, and there's one of the monarchs directly above my head. And so immediately snapped some photos. And then that was the last chance I got with them. So it wasn't easy birding in Rarotonga, but I was really excited to get these photos of these 2 species. There's very few photos online of either one of these species. So I'm happy these photos will be published along with my bird surveys that I did on Rarotonga. And so they will be kind of open access. Any researchers, anybody that wants to use these surveys or these photos for their work, they're able to reach out to me, and they're able to see the work that I did on this public platform. And so hopefully we can contribute to learning.
All right. Well, Grant, congrats. Those are some really cool species. The dove, 1,000 of them. That's pretty awesome. And your persistence definitely paid off with that final species, the monarch, and getting those photos. So that's awesome, Grant. Very cool.
Totally worth it.
What's coming up? So obviously you're watching for seabirds while you're sailing. What are you looking forward to in Tonga? What's on the agenda? It's another short turnaround, isn't it?
It's a shorter turnaround, but the thing I'm most looking forward to is so Tonga, we're going to be island hopping, hopefully, like as weather permits, and Tonga is interesting because being a little bit closer to Fiji. So Fiji, a lot of us living in North America don't really realize, but Fiji is a huge archipelago with some really big islands that are actually way bigger than like Tahiti, for example. The main island in Tahiti, I think, is more than like 6 or 7 times the land area of Tahiti, which is already a massive island. And so Fiji is this kind of reservoir of biodiversity. There's way more species of birds and way more like types of birds that live on Fiji than a lot of these other Pacific archipelagos. And so because of that and the proximity to Fiji, Tonga has quite a few more varieties of land birds than any of the other island nations that we've been to so far. So, for example, some of these new kinds of land birds that we're going to run into are the first megapodes, which are a group of like chicken-like birds that they live mostly on the ground. And they're really cool because so their name translates to mega, big, and then pod is like is the Latin for feet. So like podiatrist is a foot doctor. And so the megapodes, they use these gigantic feet to actually bury their eggs under sand. And they bury their eggs just like alligators or turtles do and incubate their eggs under warm sand. Like they'll use either volcanic sand that's like warmed by geothermal heat, or they'll use hot sand that's on sandy beaches and bury their eggs in there. And then their eggs are huge. And so these well-developed chicks have to dig themselves out through like several feet of sand, just like baby sea turtles. They're the only bird that does this. And they're a family that's found throughout like Indonesia and Australasia. And this is the first one that we're going to encounter. So Tonga has its own species of megapode. They're not usually very abundant. Like they've been on a couple of the places that I worked in the past. And you have to like get really lucky with being in the right spot where you get close to a colony. And so I've done that before, so I kind of know what I'm looking for. Yeah. But that's something that I would love to see. There's a couple of other like different interesting species of songbirds that are only found in Tonga as well. Hopefully I'll have some pictures to show off by this time next week.
Excellent. Well, Grant, thanks so much for letting us steal you for a little bit. I'm excited. The first booby turned up. Hopefully it's the first of many. Yeah, good luck. You guys still have a little bit of sailing ahead of you, but it'll be great to visit Tonga, even if it is just kind of a short visit.
Sure. Hopefully we'll get some time on the island. Oh, the other thing to say, if I've got a second. So Tonga is super interesting to me in particular because, so I don't know if I've said this before, but I used to work at the Florida Museum of Natural History. And at this museum, the curator that I was hired under, he spent most of his career looking at archaeological sites in Polynesia and Tonga in particular. And he was digging up fossil birds, like of birds that went extinct when people arrived. And so he's got several decades of bird surveys that he conducted across Tonga. So I'm actually looking at trying to go back to some of these places that he visited in the 1970s and 1980s and repeating these surveys and hopefully getting some good science out of this to be able to kind of show how these bird populations in these communities have changed over the last 40, 50 years.
Very cool.
So I'll do as much as time and opportunity allows. But.
Well, it sounds like you're going to run up some miles, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Grant, thanks so much for letting us steal you for a bit. Have fun sailing out there, and I can't wait for an update next week.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Grant.
Thanks.
All right. That was a good connection. The last couple of weeks, we've had sometimes the satellite unit plays up a little bit, and we have some little pauses, but that was a really, really good connection. So good stuff. Hopefully, as we get closer to places like Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, the satellite connectivity will potentially get even better because there'll be kind of more satellites that the Starlink can reach up and grab onto. So very cool. Before we go to our curiosity, which will be the final thing that we're going to do today, I have one more little video clip I want to play. Grant did a great job of talking about being on land, the ecosystem, the endemic birds that he spotted. But me being a diver, I'm always curious about what's going on underwater. So I have a little video clip that was taken from some diving. So some on board the ship were able to do a little bit of diving while they were in Rarotonga. So let me cue that video up here, pick the right one, It's just a short little reel, but it's beautiful. So let's take a quick look. All right. So that coral looked very healthy. There was some good marine life there, not as much as Fakareva. If you remember, in Fakareva, it looked like they were in an aquarium and surrounded by sharks as well, which is pretty wild. But that reef looked nice and healthy, and there was some good coral and there was some good marine life there as well. Okay, to wrap up for today, we have to talk about our curiosity from last week, and then we have a brand new curiosity for this week. So I am going to switch my camera view because we need to take a little look at last week's curiosity. So let's see. Whoops, that's not the right button. There we go. There we go. Desk mounted unit. All right. So this was our curiosity from last week. As I mentioned, I was in Arkona, Ontario, and was able to do a little fossil collecting. And I collected a lot of these ones. So our challenge was to determine what phylum these fossils were from. The webcam doesn't focus too well. There we go. That's a bit better. So these, obviously, you can look at them. They look very much like shells, and in fact, they are. And these are from the phylum Brachiopods. So these are brachiopods. These were probably around 300 to 400 million years old from the Devonian period. And then at the time in southern Ontario, it was a shallow sea. So there's all kinds of things you can find, trilobites and different corals, and then of course all gastropods, so like your snails, and then these brachiopods as well. There's quite a lot of them, and you find a lot of them still in the matrix, the rock matrix, like these ones here. Here's another example. And then because it was a shallow sea, it would pile up over time. And so you find a lot that look kind of like this one, where it's just piles of shells and other things that are frozen in time, locked in this matrix of rock. But you can find tons of loose ones here that over time become loosened from where they are. Okay, so Brachiopoda was the phylum. So these are brachiopods, so very similar to shelled organisms that you would find at the beach. So let me switch my camera view again, and let's look at this week's curiosity. So let's go to this camera. There we go. All right, so this week's curiosity is a mineral. So I'm going to show the mineral. It's not going to look as nice in the webcam, so I do have a little video that I'm going to share as well so we can see it a little better. In fact, I'm just noticing things are a little slow on my end, so I'm going to take a couple of videos out of this call. Hopefully it'll get a little bit faster for us. But this is our mineral. You can see it is a very sparkly and shiny mineral. It is a tricky mineral. It is a very common mineral. And it is a mineral that until recently has been very much overlooked, almost made fun of a little bit. But it turns out that it could potentially have a lot of use in our technology future. So I'm going to grab this last video clip and we're going to get a little better look at the sample here. So it'll give us a better chance of hopefully being able to identify it. There we go. So this is a little bit better of a look. Let's get that full screen. You can see it's shiny. You can see it almost has little cube shapes in it as well. You can see it's kind of a bronzy color, maybe a little hint of gold in there. So that is our curiosity for this week. You have 1 week to come up with your guesses for what this mineral is. I gave a few clues. It is very common. It's tricky. It's often overlooked when really it could play a really important role in our technology future, and we'll discuss that a little bit next week. You want to send those answers in to classroom@darwin200.com. Send your best guesses into classroom@darwin200.com. All right, there's our curiosity. We had our live connection from the Oosterschelde, and we got to check out the amazing video that came back from the voyage from Papeete to Rarotonga. Those humpback whales were spectacular. And I think in Tonga that they hopefully will see even more. And who knows, maybe even there'll be time to get into the water with them as well. As we end all of our events, we are going to wrap up with a shout out to our sponsors, to our partners, our collaborators, without whom we wouldn't be doing live classroom events, sailing around the world, bringing young conservation leaders to the ship to experience the places and the organizations. We wouldn't be doing the research we've been doing, like the drones and the coral transects. So huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you everyone for tuning in this week. We'll have another live event next week. And then I believe we'll be back after that into our full regular hour events. Classrooms in Europe, Canada, and the US will all be back in action. And those events should be a lot of fun. But for now, we are going to sign off.